being a blue collar guy, like my first business was lawn care and then power washing and window cleaning. Like we don't have lead provide. Like maybe Angie's List, maybe Thumbtack. Like just within the past few years.
When you are a State Farm agent or you are an Allstate agent or a farmer's agent or an independent agent, you can start scratch. You can get like an appointment and basically start with 0 customers and grow. It's very hard to get off the ground. There's a super high failure rate.
I enjoy cold calling. The 3 biggest projects that my power washing business has ever done has come from cold calling.
Sure.
And we've done 6-figure jobs like.
But I've been sold on this idea that like if I can work really hard for 4 or 5 years, I can be.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Coach Carroll. Welcome to another episode of the Sales Factory. Today on the Sales Factory, I'm excited to welcome on a guy that I've been trying to get on for years, it feels like. You guys will probably know this guy once I say his name here. I think we have a lot of audience crossover. Super sharp dude. I've always enjoyed my conversations with him. And I'm excited to welcome Andrew Filar. I hope I pronounced that the proper way. Co-founder of Next Call Club and CEO of Peachy Insurance. In less than a decade, Andrew's gone from fresh out of college to building the fastest growing Allstate agency in the country, scaling from 0 to 45 million in premium in just 7 years. Now he's helping 150 plus agencies nationwide do the same with very interesting marketing tactics, efficient lead management, and outbound sales strategies through Next Call Club. Andrew is a true innovator in the insurance world, mixing data-driven decision-making, hands-on coaching, and a relentless focus on profitable growth. Guys, help me welcome Andrew Filar to the podcast. Welcome to the factory, my man.
Thanks for having me, dude. I think the intro is pretty good. I think I got to update some numbers.
Okay.
I'm not quite the spring chicken I was. So I think I've been out of college for 12 years now. So
okay.
It's a little over a decade.
Down there. So I always like
probably
they do a good job putting stuff together. Yeah, it's pulling from the website and stuff. So, well, Andrew, catch us up, man. From there, where are we at now in this journey you've been on?
Yeah, so I'm probably about 12 years into the insurance journey. I graduated from college in 2013, so I'm 12 years in. Got an MBA somewhere along the way, and the agency size is right. 7 years, 45 million. Most of that being organic growth. We've acquired about 10 million of that. Sold some premium off. Next Call Club, we are about to hit kind of like our 3-year mark come January. I think we're up to 225 agents, something like that. You know, not trying to get too big. We are a boutique firm, but I think everything else was pretty spot on. You know, this year's been a lot of travel, been a lot of speaking, a lot of, content creation while trying to keep the agency rolling and growing Next Call Club. So we can talk about so many things. I know you said you use Perplexity. I've been playing with their new browser, trying to plan my vacation coming up in December, and a lot of really cool things happen in the AI space.
I'm super excited to unpack some stuff with you on that because, oftentimes when I'm interviewing guests, that's their blind spot, right? They may not be, but I know you and I are kind of in the same space. And so I was excited to jam with you on this. Let's talk about, I want to unpack kind of the three stages. Well, AI is going to make its way into conversations. It happens in every podcast I have right now. It comes up, but talk to me about the insurance space. I'm always curious to ask people that are in the insurance space, what got you started in it? Because I remember, going to college and career day, like, the job fair stuff. And it's like, insurance was never like a trajectory, right? It was chemical engineering. It was, engineering this, engineering that, maybe a lawyer, maybe a doctor. How did Andrew get started in insurance?
So I was getting a finance degree. I doubled in economics. And, I always tell people like I was on track to graduate early. I think I was going to be like 20 years old graduating, and I was just getting like a general management degree. And that wasn't because I wanted a management degree. It was because I went off to college because everyone said you got to go to college. And so I went to college, and I honestly didn't ever go to advising. I just, like some of our friends, the girls mostly who were much better students, I just did whatever they did. Like, what class you take? I'll take the same classes, right? Like whatever. And, I was a good student in the sense that I went to class, I studied all the things, but I really didn't have a lot of vision on like what I wanted to do like with my life. And I was serving tables down in Southwest Florida, which has a ton of, hotels and country clubs. And honestly, I was making amazing money. And I remember one of our professors saying like, look, if you are not doing an internship or working in some type of, office job, like you really need to get started because it's going to help you when you get out of college, obviously, right? This is basic stuff. And he said, "You're probably gonna take a pay cut if you're serving tables or in the hospitality industry." And it was true. So, I knew I had to get some type of job, and I had a buddy that was working at State Farm, and he said, "Look, man, like, I think you'd be good at this thing I'm doing at State Farm." And I said, "Why is that?" And he's like, "Well, because you guys are always just talking shit. Like, you're always talking shit, like, you're rebuttaling, like, you're just always, like, going back and forth, and, like, that's basically phone sales." And I was like, all right, fine." And so I took a job at State Farm. I think I was making like $10 an hour or something like that.
Interesting.
And I
Okay.
had to
I this
cold
is
call
I didn't know
commercial.
this about you.
Yeah, I had to cold call commercial, and I did that. So I was going to school. I had 2 classes left. I kind of had like a holdover of 2 classes to graduate. And so I would work at State Farm kind of part-time, about 30 hours a week. I had 2 classes left. And then at night, I'd go serve tables at the country club restaurant that I worked at. And basically the idea was like, look, get out of college, get your license. Once you get your licenses, I needed to get a 215 license basically to sell life insurance. And he said, once you have a life insurance license, you can work internet leads, but until then, you're cold calling businesses. So that's how I got my start. I just would make hundreds of calls to local businesses saying that we wanted to quote their commercial auto insurance. And what I'll tell you is I hated it, sucked. It was horrible. I wasn't very good at it. I put up 0 sales a couple months. Surprised I didn't get fired. But what I'm grateful for is that I stuck with it. And when I got out of school, got my license, went to internet leads, I thought they were so easy. I thought they were so easy because what I came from was so much harder. And so that's really how I got my start. And I just was a producer at a State Farm agency for about 2 years, and then I got recruited by who was at the time the largest Allstate agency in the country, who happened to be down the street.
Oh,
Came
wow.
in, started working internet leads, and we had quick success. And he very quickly was like, "Hey, why don't you take over my wholesales team? They're used to waiting for the phone to ring from direct mail. Why don't you turn them into an outbound team?" And I said, "Okay." And I was like 23 years old,
Sure.
and
Sounds easy enough.
yeah, and then like over my head, but it was trial by fire, and I stayed there for about 7 years, and opened my agency about halfway through that tenure, ran that agency and my own, and
Oh, wow.
here we are. So,
Holy shit, dude.
it was a lot
I
of work. It was a lot of
no,
work.
and I mean, I started with State Farm agents. When I started Carroll Media, like my State Farm agent was my first customer, and so I had no idea that you got your start at Big Red,
Big
uh,
red.
and then made your way to the blue team. So, what? Ask me. I'm curious. I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
Did you ever consider being a State Farm agent instead of an Allstate agent? And
I
if
did.
not, why?
I guess I was kind of unofficially on the agent aspirant track.
Okay.
And,
Yep.
you know, um, I think that a couple things. For one, when I was at State Farm, I told you I was getting paid $10 an hour. But when I got licensed and went full time, my pay actually got decreased. My base was decreased. I had a $12,000 base. I think maybe towards the end it was closer to 18. I think I got a little bit more money because I was doing well or something. No benefits, nothing like that. And basically the idea was if I sell 100 cars a month, along with some life, along with some health, along with some bank, which was mostly State Farm credit cards, which I hated selling, but I had a person on my team that had a really great talk path that we were able to sell quite a bit of them. I could make like $80,000 a year. And I think for me, I was on the State Farm track, and I had been I don't want to use the word indoctrinated because that feels so negative, but I had been sold on this idea that like if I can work really hard for 4 or 5 years, I can become a State Farm agent. And I was like, "Okay, I'm all in on that," right? And, like, it was kind of like a carrot being dangled saying, like, "You do this, you'll be a millionaire by 30." And I'm like, "Yeah, let's do that. Let's be a millionaire by 30." And I remember going off to a training, that was held by, 2 State Farm agents, Dan Barracliff, who's, like, right in my neck of the woods, great guy. He's actually my State Farm agent for some of my stuff, that I don't insure with Allstate, and, but I have other things with Allstate, obviously. And then a guy named Peyton Pettis, and they ran a training, and I was able to meet a ton of other agents, and I met a couple people who were like 23, 24 years old who were agents. And that was a shock to me because I'd been told that I couldn't be an agent before I was like 25 or 26, so they would never approve it.
Hmm.
And then I met another person who was approved, and they asked me to explain something to them, and I said, Collision?" And they're like, "Yeah, what is collision?" And they had been approved to take over like a $2.5 million book. And I feel like in that moment, I felt like I had been lied to, and so I was a little bit jaded, right? And granted, I was
Ah,
like 23 years old, 24 years old, something like that. And so I was kind of like, "F this, man. Like, I don't need to work at a State Farm agency for 5 years, killing myself for 60 or 70 hours at a 12 or 18K base with no benefits to someday become an agent." So I said, "Screw it." And so basically my plan was when I got recruited by that Allstate agent, I said, "Look, I'm gonna go work for this guy for like a year, and then I'm gonna go open an agency, maybe an independent, maybe an Allstate, maybe a State Farm, maybe a Farmers." But really what I needed was I just kind of needed a year to heal because I'd been working 60 or 70 hours a week, just grinding, grinding, grinding. And I wound up just like sticking around and I learned about the Allstate Scratch program and I had a way that was
so
able
you
to be
started scratch?
I started Scratch. Yeah.
Wow. And explain for the listeners that don't know what that means.
It means I started with 0 customers, and so when you are a State Farm agent or you are an Allstate agent or a Farmers agent or an independent agent, you can start scratch, you can get, like, an appointment and basically start with 0 customers and grow. It's very hard to get off the ground. There's a super high failure rate, but I wasn't coming in blind. I had already, been a high producer. I had already run a large agency, and so I felt some confidence there. The alternative to that is if you're a State Farm agent, you can be given a book that you can take over a book, maybe is a better way to say it. Sometimes, 2, 3, 4 million. I'm not really sure what they're up to nowadays. Back then, it was like you got a $2 million book in like 2015. That was a big book to be given.
Yeah.
Or, on the Allstate or independent or farmer side, you can buy an agent, go take a loan and buy an agency. And so I think like those are kind of the things. And I learned about the Scratch program. And what I really liked about Allstate was that you build equity in your book and you can sell your book. And if I want to
Yeah.
pass that book along to somebody, I can do that. And I don't know all the rules with State Farm, but my understanding is that when you leave, you don't choose where it goes. You don't
That's correct.
choose what you sell it for. You kind of give the keys back, and maybe there's a pension or something like that. Again, I don't want to misspeak. I don't know all the intricacies of
Yeah.
the program, but that's kind of the feeling I get. And so I liked the idea of having a little bit more freedom to do what I wanted with the equity on my book, maybe borrow against my book to do things. Like I just thought that was
Yeah.
really interesting. And I was already in the ecosystem. It was convenient. I had relationships. And so, yes, in short, I was thinking about becoming a State Farm agent. It wasn't necessarily that I had a problem with State Farm. I just thought the Allstate opportunity at that point was a better opportunity for me.
Love it. Breaking news here, Andrew. I don't think a lot of people knew that you started over on that side of the fence, man. That's
Yeah, I don't
exciting.
know. Maybe. I mean, it depends on the presentation they've seen me give, right?
I love it, man. Well, so talk about acquisition because, I'm a big fan of growth through acquisition. I think it's a great business strategy. Obviously, you've got a background in economics. And so I'm like, I'm tempted to go like full 3 hour Joe Rogan, like, let's just talk about the economy because that would be fun. We could get into central banking and the creature from Jekyll Island and all that good stuff, but we'll save
Oh, I
that for
see you're
another.
well read.
Being a dyslexic college dropout, I've picked up a couple of books in my life, so it's been
There you
fun.
go.
I'm curious, man, what made you start Next Call Club? How did you get in there? Is it from a sense of like, hey, I want to help other agents? Because when I've met you, man, when I've seen you speak on stage, when I've seen you interact with, different people in the industry when we're at conferences, you strike me as a guy that has a really big heart that like you just want to help people. And that's cool. That's why I wanted to have you on the podcast. I love aligning with people
Yeah.
like that. But I'm curious, like, what, I think you said 3 years. You guys are at about the 3 year mark, Next Call Club.
Yeah.
Where did it come from? What made you want to go chase another avenue? I know Hermosi's famous for saying, yeah, sure, have 3 businesses. It's like having 3 wives, right? It's like one's enough. And I'm in that same trap where I've got multiple streams of income. It's like, so what made you want to get started with Next Call Club and tell us the story with that?
Sure. Um, so how do I want to kind of share this story? I think if we're thinking about the origin story of Next Call Club, I think back to 2022. And I remember being in the beginning of 2022. And I remember getting to a place where we had developed a lot of leadership in the agency. We had developed middle managers, upper managers, to where I found myself only working like 15 hours a week, maybe less.
Sweet, man.
And that was pretty damn cool. And what I'll tell you is like I was doing 15 hours a week or so of like real focus work. And granted, there's email, there's text, there's like all these things, there's thinking, there's a lot of thinking time, which was really amazing in a lot of ways because it gave me a lot of time to try new shit. And what I'll say is though, is that when you have a lot of time to think, you start to think and you're like, well, I could do this or I could do that. And I knew that I had the ability to help agents in the form of like a business service or a consultancy or a kind of a coaching program, something. I was like, I can work with agents in some way, shape, or form. I just didn't know what way to do that. And so I started like going down the rabbit hole. I really love this one podcast called My First Million. Just these two guys. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but two guys
I've
who
heard a
sold their
couple episodes
companies
of
in
it.
their like late 20s. And now they just kind of get on a podcast and just talk about business ideas. Here's a business somebody can start. And I was just listening to it a lot. And you start hearing frameworks. And I had just gotten done with my MBA, and there's like all these things. And so I was going through my MBA, and you take classes, and I was like, let me just like start a company, a quote unquote company to use as like an example for this project. And I can just
Love
build
it,
a
man.
company, get a lot of feedback. So there was a little bit of that. I was listening to these podcasts saying like, what could I do? And ultimately what I got to a place of is like, what am I uniquely good at? And how can I combine those things to create something unique? And what I figured out was that I'm great at lead management. I understand the internet lead industry at a deep level that I think, I try to be very humble, but I think that I'm one of the more knowledgeable guys on the, in the agency space, certainly. Second, we've always excelled at outbound calling. We've always telemarketed internally with US based people. We understand outbound. We really like outbound. I like making outbound calls. I think a lot of people don't, but I do and my business partners do. And then third, we've used analytics since basically day one. Like we've had 3 data analysts since the day that we opened the agency. And that's
Wow.
helped us make faster and better decisions because we're not shooting blind. And so I said, how can I combine these 3 things? And that's how Next Call Club ultimately was born. And so it started as a, hey, we're going to help teach you how to build a lead and telemarketing program in your agency. And after
That.
doing that for like 2 or 3 months, it was, had no problem selling it, but the problem was executing on it. There was just too many variables. And an agent came to me and said, could you just like do this turnkey for me? And at first I said no, and then finally I said yes. And that's kind of how the whole snowball started to roll. We started just controlling the whole process. We got a better result. Agents liked it better because they was just kind of like set it and forget it. So that's kind of how it started. And I would say all of this kind of happened at the end of 2022 when we were getting ready to leave the other agency. And so I was going to go from having 2 jobs to 1 job. And because I loved the pain, decided to start another company and get it going. And so I think for me, it's just about like general restlessness. I think I'm right there again. Like Peachy's rolling, Peachy Insurance is rolling. Next Call Club, we've built up middle management specialist type roles. And now I'm saying, what's next? I'm working on kind of like a local media company. And maybe that'll be something really cool. Maybe that will just be an awareness branding play for Peachy Insurance. I don't know, but I think there's a lot of opportunity in local media. I think there's a lot of opportunity with local lead gen. I think there's a lot of opportunity locally, especially as AI becomes more and more prevalent on the internet and people are starting to doubt, is that real? Is it AI? Am I actually talking to a person? Am I talking to an
Yeah,
AI
man.
voice? There's like the dead internet theory where everything is just
Yep.
AI slop on the internet. And so
Yep.
I think people are going to shift back to local in-person type things more than ever. And I want to be at the forefront of that.
I love that, man. I've always said that, you know, you're an exception to the rule. That's why, Nick Saka with his social media content is an exception to the rule. You
For
guys,
sure.
knowing how to do outbound the right way or how to work internet leads. The number of guys that I talk to, and I mean, hundreds of insurance agents from all flagships, independent included, they buy these internet leads, man, and they like maybe call them the day they get them.
Sure.
Maybe they call them 5 times total, the whole length of having them in their pipeline. No email, no text, no direct mail. Like it is crazy, man. Like the amount of money that is spent buying leads.
For sure.
And I think it's so perplexing to me because being a blue collar guy, like my first business was lawn care and then power washing and window cleaning. Like we don't have lead provide. Like maybe Angie's
Right.
List, maybe Thumbtack. Like just within the past few years.
Yeah.
But like internet leads are wild to me in the insurance space and in mortgage, right? Because like those are the 2 big spots. And so I think it says something to you that you've got a system that can do the outbound, call these leads. And I'm guessing that's what you're meaning by outbound, right? Like you guys aren't like you're buying internet leads and you're outbound dialing to them. You're doing outbound
Correct.
business reach, right? Right.
Absolutely. And
Okay.
turning it into a call that we can then transfer to an agent who's selling on the phone, right? And
Correct.
the reason that people like that I mean, it should be obvious, but just in case it's not, is that like for one, some people don't have the right personnel who's going to fight to overcome objections and get that customer to engage. They're just going to say, "I'm not interested," and that person's like, "Okay, thanks," and then
Yeah.
they market a bad lead. And I always tell people like it's our job to make them interested. Like if it's the person on the call that the lead says it is, like that is a good lead, and you should overcome that objection. Some people say my team could do it, but they're getting burned out. They're getting
Mm.
burned out dialing, dialing, dialing. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, whether you buy internet leads and call them yourself, or you use a telemarketing company, or you just skip right to the end and buy a live transfer, it's about finding what's the right fit for you as an agent. And I think ultimately about like, does it fit your economic standards? For me, I'll never spend $130 for a live transfer because I just can't get the conversion rate that I need to make that make sense. Some people are willing to pay $130 a transfer and they don't care about the conversion cost because they're chasing a bonus at the end of the year. They're not looking for
Ah,
profit. I'm looking for profit. They're looking for pure growth or something like that.
that makes sense. Is the I too enjoy the pain, Andrew. So I will side with you on that. I enjoy cold calling. The three biggest projects that my power washing business has ever done has come from cold calling.
For sure.
And we've done six-figure jobs like cleaning stadiums. Like it's insane. It's I don't really talk about it much on the podcast. It's more business marketing, sales stuff. But I'm curious because I think cold calling, dialing out to leads is like the easiest way to make money. Like it's because it is you just if you don't have a lot of money and you have a lot of time, it is the easiest way to just go find business out there. And I honestly, I'd be curious your opinion on this. I think it's higher converting now than ever before because there are less people dialing, right? Less people have those skills that they can just get punched in the face for 8 hours and like show back up the next day. And you've got so many people that are using junk AI to do outbound to their calls now that like it's just not converting.
Yeah.
That I think having an actual human that can do things like a voice up where you can answer, you can say hello, and I'll say, Andrew, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, it's Coach Carroll. You got a couple seconds? Yeah, what's up, man? Right? Like that an AI it can't do that on an outbound. I'm curious, what's your thoughts on that? And what have you seen the trend? Like, are you long-term bullish for outbound cold calling or warm calling on leads, or do you think there is something better coming down the pipeline?
I think bullish is an interesting term. I don't know if I would say I'm bullish. I think I use the term bullish very sparingly. I'm
Okay.
very bullish on local media because I think the
Okay.
pendulum is swinging that way. I wouldn't say I'm pessimistic about outbound. What I agree with you on the sense that you've got to stand out, you've got to be different. Like we have a sales trainer on our staff named Ryan Hill, and he talks about it all the time with our team, other people's teams. You got to be the red hat. You have to stand out. Like in a sea of black hats, wear the red hat and stand out. So to your point, if we think about the way that we outbound, we are trying to do it a little bit differently than what the masses are doing. So most people are offshoring or nearshoring. So their caller is out of the country. And there's no problem with that. I think that can be effective. You typically get lower performance. You also get lower wages, and you have to do the math to see if that works for you or not. But when we call somebody from the States and there's zero accent and you sound just like the person on the end of the phone, I think that is the difference maker. Another thing that we do is we run branded caller IDs. Like we use that internally for our telemarketing for Peachy Insurance. It's a service we offer with Next Call Club. We brand the caller ID. So when you get a phone call, you can actually see it's a legitimate business. That helps you stand out rather than just some number that you don't recognize. I think another thing is that people focus so much on the actual telemarketing and they say, okay, like, well, I got this number, it's 888, whatever. And they Google that number and nothing comes up because it's some cycled
This one's
BS number.
Yeah, this one's good. I've heard you say this one from stage. So talk to
Yeah.
the people, talk to my audience about putting the number on the website because I know
Yeah.
that's where
So
you're
for
going
instance,
with
we put
smart.
every phone number that we have on the website. So if somebody Googles the number that we call from, like it'll say Peachy Insurance, but if for some reason the branding doesn't show up because it doesn't show up 100% of the time, and they Google that number, it shows Peachy Insurance's website and they can call us. And guess what? If they land on our website, now they're getting retargeted with ads all across the internet. And so, when you talk about like standing out, there's those things. And then it's also not flagging spam. Like we have a spam remediation service. So many people are using various types of like monitoring service. I use quotation because if you flag, then you've got to go to the carrier, you've got to provide all these things, and it can be weeks to get it remediated. Because if you're flagging spam, we're talking like a 1 or 2% answer rate versus a 6, 7, or 8% answer rate. And just
Wow.
like quick math, you make 1,000 calls a day, a difference between 2% and 6% answer rate is something like thirty to $40,000 of expected revenue that you just
Jeez.
missed because you're not getting people on the phone. I think another one is like we leave voicemails. A lot of people don't leave voicemails anymore. So
On the
we are
first call?
constant, usually on the last call of the day. So like
Okay.
for instance, our call cadence, we call 3 times the first day. So we will
Woo!
leave a
Love it.
voicemail on the 3rd call. And so you don't want to leave a voicemail every time because it's like, hey, it's Andrew. Hey, it's Andrew.
It's
Hey, it's
creepy
Andrew.
ex-girlfriend
Yeah,
real
it's, yeah,
fucking quick.
exactly. Exactly. And I think, there's all these trade-offs with all these things, but like we are constantly trying to think about how do we do what other people don't do. And so if
Mm,
everybody's going offshore, well, we want to go onshore. If everybody's, ceasing to leave voicemails, well, maybe we leave voicemails. And I think to your point about I think AI calling, I think there is a place for that. I think there's a lot of data out there that shows that it works really well with non-standard type customers. Non-standard type customers don't care,
what
and
does that mean,
maybe
non-standard?
it tends to mean like somebody who maybe has a credit that's not as good, or maybe they've got lapses in insurance, or maybe they have no insurance history, or their credit might be, needing some repair, or maybe they have a DUI, or maybe they have a bunch of accidents or tickets. Typically, not like the non-Allstate, non-farmers type of clients, like the people you would see with like the General or
Yeah.
Dairyland or some of these other.
Fado and stuff like that. Yep.
Yeah, and there's a market for that, and those people need insurance too. They are much more likely to answer by AI and maybe even buy from AI.
Interesting.
What I would say though is like there's potential TCPA risk with AI calls.
Oh,
There's trust risk with AI calls, and I think there's a place for it, and I think it can work. You've got to test, and I do think it's getting better all the time. And so at the end of the day, you just have to keep testing, testing. Now there's call screening. And so the
I
question
was gonna
is
ask you
like,
about that with the new iOS. It's like a couple years ago they hit us
yeah,
with, the retargeting turn off, right? Because it's like harder to track on an iPhone. Now they're hitting us with this. I'm like, all right, you're not gonna be able to market to people with an iPhone in another 10 years. They're gonna have this walled off.
but it
What's your
goes
thoughts on that?
But it goes back to why omni-channel is so important.
Mm,
And I think, I just did a presentation last week talking about like focusing on the entirety of the marketing funnel. Like if you think about like the classic Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross, Alec Baldwin scene where he's saying AIDA, attention, interest, decision, and action,
yep.
we are so focused on the action stage. We're trying to skip right to the end. We send a bunch of direct mail so they call us. We buy leads and we call them so we can bind them. One call close, right? First call bind. We're so focused on that action stage that we forget about awareness. Do they even know who we are? How
Yeah,
do I
man.
make sure they know Peachy Insurance? So when my caller ID shows up on the screen, they're like, oh, I know Peachy. I recognize Peachy. Or like, you know what? That sounds familiar. You can do that in so many ways. Or interest. How do we actually get them to show up on our website? And then when they get on our website, how do we use testimonials or Google reviews or these various things to build trust? So when we try to get them to take action or we take action towards them, they are already warmed up. I ask people all the time, like if you're sending direct mail and you show up in somebody's mailbox, do you want that to be the first time they see you or the 10th time they see you?
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So
Speaking the lingo on this, dude, top of funnel, like they they buy leads that like the buying the leads just a one call close, the send and direct mail, get the phone. Like, yes, that's marketing, but like you're literally skipping the entire marketing funnel and you're
for
going
sure.
straight from awareness to interest to like action. Like you said, the old Glengarry, which if you guys, some of the younger listeners are probably like, who the fuck are they talking about? Glengarry, Glen Ross. Go to
Yeah.
YouTube, type in Glengarry, Glen Ross. It is a like I mandate if I'm gonna hire someone in sales, like they have got to have already seen that. Like I'm not gonna
It's
hire
definitely not safe for work, so just be aware.
brass balls. That's what you need to sell real estate. That's what he says in the
For
clip,
sure.
bro.
Yeah, it's like an 8-minute scene, but it's a classic.
Yeah.
And I think going back to the call screening specifically is if somebody sees a call screening and there's a branded caller ID, like is there a higher likelihood that we're going to get through? I think so. People have asked me, they said, "What are you doing to get through the call screening?"
When you say
And we
hire, Andrew, when you say branded, is it like got your Peachy logo on it, or does it just say Peachy? Like, what do you mean by branded?
It just says Peachy Insurance, and
Okay,
sometimes
cool.
it just says Peachy. It just kind of depends. So the logo piece
Okay,
is interesting. Like there are services out there that will do that, but you have to have an app on either like the Google App Store or the Apple App Store, and then it has to connect. And it's like a whole thing. And there's
gotcha.
no real reason for me to have a Peachy insurance app, and then it would require that person to have that app to show that logo. So you might see it where if you hit up like Delta support, you see Delta like in the text, you see their logo. Well, I have the Delta app on my phone. And
Okay.
so, but just saying Peachy or Peachy Insurance is huge because one, if they recognize us, they're more likely to pick up. If they don't recognize us, maybe they say, well, everybody else has no caller ID and these people do. So I'm going to pick up. Or third, they say, who the hell are these guys? And they Google Peachy Insurance. And then we see a lot of leads that we outbound call us back on a dedicated Google number. And I know a lot of people, and I'm curious your opinion on this. I put a different number on my Google listing than my main website. And people say, don't do that because it hurts SEO. But I want attribution. And
Yeah.
attribution can be very hard with top of the funnel, which is why I think so many people ignore it. There's been such a push, by me included, to say if you can't track the ROI, you can't assume that you're getting anything from it, which is why you have to measure the whole funnel and the individual things within
Yeah.
the funnel.
I agree. How many fights do you think you guys have just caused, like with husband and wives? Like I'm just thinking, like how many husbands have a missed call from Peachy on their phone, and the wife is like, "Who the fuck is Peachy?" When I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you know, it's funny you say that. It's because we were setting up our Google Ads account like a year or two ago or something like that. And we kept getting denied. We just like kept getting denied. And then finally we got on with Google support and they're like, oh, like we thought it was like adult content. And we're like, no,
No,
it's
just insurance.
insurance. Yeah. So my buddy Frank Jimenez, I don't know if you know him. He did the setup for us. And he was like, yeah, I just show him that you guys weren't selling feet pics. You guys were selling insurance.
It's
So
like Peachy Insurance. We cover your ass, not show it. Right? It's like,
that exactly. When apparently like
well, you and Janie
Peachy,
Young can get together because she just bought a strip club
she
to turn
bought the
into
strip
her
club.
office.
I
So it's
know. We
like,
should team up.
you need
We
to
should team
license
up.
your name. That needs to be Peachy Insurance. I mean, if anybody's going to own an old strip club to be an office now, right? I would think
I'm
it'd
sure
be
I could find one for sale in Atlanta. It's a big pole town.
definitely,
It's a
definitely in
big pole
Atlanta.
town.
Oh man! All right, we got to keep this thing moving. Don't let me get too sidetracked with
Sure.
strip clubs and Peachy. I'm curious with the phone number because we have ran into this issue with State Farm, Allstate. Farmers is pretty laxed on it, but we've ran into issues where like corporate compliance will say, no, 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 you're an agent. Your corporate number needs to be on that Google business profile. Like, have you had any issues with that?
Yeah, sometimes it gets switched back automatically and then we just switch it
Jeez.
again. And so it's just like a constant like push pull, push pull, push pull. It's just
That's
part of it.
hilarious. That's great. No, I mean, it's
It's just part
fantastic.
of it. And I think at the end of the day, I get it. It's probably not like a malicious thing. It's probably just like whatever system they have set up. It's just looking for consistencies,
Yeah.
and then it sees that it's inconsistent and it does it. I don't know, but I know like with Allstate, I think it's just like one of these things. It's like I don't know what the rules are at State Farm, but Allstate agents can have their own website and they can have their
Yeah.
own brand, and
Yeah.
so long as
State
you
Farm
follow
definitely cannot do that.
the
They will
compliance
lose their book of
standards.
business.
Yeah, and I think it's a huge tool because, for
100%,
me,
man.
it's like if I'm spending a bunch of money on marketing, I don't want them to go to my Allstate page
Yeah.
because if they click get a quote, maybe it goes to corporate, maybe it goes to me. But if it goes to Peachy Insurance, I can retarget them on Google and Facebook and
Exactly.
Instagram and TikTok. And, I have a quote form on my website and I don't generate a lot of leads off my website, but the ones I do close at
Good
like
to hear.
5 times the rate of an internet lead,
Yep. That's
you
we
know?
try to train agents to understand like I think the biggest problem a lot of agents have they don't understand they don't truly understand the product that they sell. Like you can't run a buy one get one free auto policy ad, right? You can't
That does make it
create
hard.
that, right? It's like there are rules and there are there's walls in the room that you're in with selling insurance, and I think a lot of agents don't understand that. And what they don't understand is like yeah, I get it. You get, 5 leads from your website a month, but those 5 leads are people that actually have found you online, sought you out, more than likely saw your stuff because if you're doing retargeting, right? And now that lead that comes through, man, it's so much hotter of a lead. Like I would say it's one of the hottest, other than a direct call into your office. The second one I would say is like a website form submission. And most people don't because let's face it, if I need insurance, dude, I'm not like filling out a form, like just sipping my coffee, enjoying my Saturday morning, right? I'm like, fuck, I need insurance. I got to get on the phone and find it, right? It's like a
Right.
product like that. And so it makes sense earlier to what you were saying with like the people that have DUIs and have less than perfect records, they're probably always looking to shop because, like, I can imagine how expensive my insurance is
Yeah,
high.
they're getting the worst
And I'm
rate.
like, I pay a shit ton on my insurance, and I've never had a wreck, and so it's like, yeah, speeding ticket. I had like one fender bender, but it's like, I can only imagine if I had 3 DUIs, right, or a DUI period, what that rate would be, and so they're probably always looking. I say all of that to hone in on this right here. The website presence that Allstate and Farmers agents have the ability to have, and the ones that aren't capitalizing on it, blow my mind, dude. It's like one of the biggest advantages you guys have over a State Farm office. Um, and let's face it, most independents that I've talked to, like, their websites are like, they're like 2005. They're like, fine, we'll get a website, and it hasn't been touched since then. Like,
Yeah.
so the ability to look really clean. This is why we built Allie's AI lead detection, is because we were driving a ton of website visitors, but they weren't converting because they're from social, right? They're just looking around. It's cold traffic.
Yeah.
And so we started identifying these anonymous website visitors to then put them in that funnel. But then what we found was, like, agents were like, what? Marketing funnel, warm up funnel, lead nurturing. What are you talking about? I call the guys once. If they don't buy, on to the next dude. It's a very interesting business and industry. I think you've been so successful because you've mastered that side of the business, right? The most important side, because without marketing and sales, nothing in business happens. Like, you could be the
For
best,
sure.
you could be the best person at finding policies, putting them together, making sure people are protected. But if nobody knows who you are or what you sell, like, you're in trouble, man. And you've done a great job of just streamlining that whole process. I'm curious, where are you? I won't use the word bullish again, but I'm curious, where are you looking to say, okay, we'll stick a little AI here, we'll stick a little AI there, because, like, this is the future. I know you and I will both agree on that, but it's like, how are you strategically picking where you're implementing AI, and where you're still going, we're going to use a human for that?
I think it's there's a lot of different places, a lot of different applications. And I think with AI specifically, I just want to kind of like say this before I answer the questions. People say, like, look, like, I don't even know where to start. And people say, how did you get started? And I said, well, first off, you got to use the tools. Like, you just got to like
Amen.
get in the habit of using the tools. The more you use the
100%.
tools, like, the more success you're going to have. And I think I'm a really big fan of just doing something for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. And it's just something that helps me stay consistent in a routine. I started building my audience by posting on LinkedIn every day. I think my streak was like 452 days. And then I went on vacation. I was like, I think I'm good. I think I'm good. And I'm going to like switch over to Facebook or something now. And what I'll say is that I started just watching one video on AI from YouTube every day. And I watched one video by a guy named Greg Eisenberg who went through like 25 AI tools that he thought were cool and why he thought they were cool. I opened every single one of those in a tab, looked around, said, I don't know, could this be useful? Could it not? Some things were over my head. Like, some stuff is like, like a little bit. I'm like, what? I think maybe like my data team could use this, or like some people on my other, like, my sales team could use this. And I went to their YouTubes and I followed all of their channels. So, like, I follow like what Anthropic's channel and ChatGPT's and Perplexity's channel, and yeah, a lot of those are product videos, but they're how-to videos as well. And
Oh,
then so I just tried to watch one video a day, and sometimes the video would be 45 minutes on how to build, like, an AI sales role play tool. Great. Sometimes it's a 4 or 5-minute video on just, like, how to prompt better, and it just depended how much time I had, how much energy I had. So I started there. So if you think about, like, the way that we're using it today, is like we use it to score, like, to score calls. So we have a redaction tool. We redact PII, we score calls. We still use human scoring as well. And but it helps us find directional trends, so that's a big one. We vibe coded our spam remediation site, so, like, we have
love
if somebody wants spam remediation from us, we have a guy on our team who basically vibe coded the whole thing. He built the website, he created the portal, people can log in, add, remove numbers, pay, do everything right from the website.
that.
So that's
Crazy.
one of the ways we're using it. I think when um, we do a lot of copywriting with it as a place to start. We don't just copy and paste. I say at that point, you're better off not doing it. But we'll say, hey, like, give me a 5 email sequence using different copywriting frameworks. And then what we do is, like, kind of get like the skeleton, the bones, and then I'll rewrite it or something like that. We do a lot of graphic creation for our Facebook ads. I think where I'm trying to get to is personalized outreach at scale. So something that we're running right now is we do a lot of recruiting, a lot of outbound recruiting. And so I have an AI workflow.
Like
that
for you guys internally or for your clients? Like,
for internally. We don't recruit as a
okay.
service. It's just not worth it. I had a couple people who were like consulting clients of mine or like big like lead buying clients of mine say, could you do this? And I'm like, how about this? How about we just build the AI workflow for you and then you go get a virtual assistant to
I love
send the
it.
messages, or we set up an automation. And so huge fan of using virtual assistants, by the way. I have 12, for the various companies, and there are compliance things. You got to make sure you're compliant. They don't have access to the systems, but we built an AI workflow on recruiting that basically takes we create a list in LinkedIn, or we use a soft piece of software called Juicebox AI to find people. It's
There
called
you
a
go.
people GPT. It's just like a wrapper, like everything is.
Love
We
that.
find a bunch of people. It scrapes their LinkedIn profile. It scrapes my LinkedIn profile. We have a monster prompt that crafts a personalized message, creates an email, and it sends. And we just have
Wow.
recruiting on autopilot. And so like
And
these are
what's
just
that
some of the
say? It's like,
ways.
hey, it's coming from you, right? You're like, hey, I'm Andrew. Like, we're
Yeah.
friends on LinkedIn. We're connected, and like, if you're looking for a transition, let's talk.
It basically says something akin to this. It says, "Hey DJ, we are reaching out because we saw you were open to new opportunities." That's a flag you can put on LinkedIn. And I was just taking a look at your profile, and I noticed your experience at State Farm. And I got my start at State Farm as well. I know how you know much of a grind it can be as a producer in insurance sales. Would love to show you why we're different. Here's our comp plan. Here's all the things you get with working with us. Just like a value bomb, like value, 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 value. Let me know if you want to set up a 15-minute chat just to see if this is a fit. And
Wow,
we get about a 30% response rate on that.
it's crazy, man.
Yeah.
It's
So
that personalization, like because it knows, like, oh yeah, Andrew was at State Farm, so like we can
and
tie
that's
that
part of the
together. Like
prompt, right? We say
that's
find
part
what
of
we
it,
have in
man.
common by scraping the two LinkedIn profiles. And if there's
This
nothing in
is
common, then just complement their experience.
I love it because I didn't, back in 2016 when I went to my State Farm agent, I was like, Mark, I think the social media thing's going to be big. I actually just had lunch with him yesterday, so we were
Yeah.
catching up. And he said, DJ, I still remember what you told me way back in June of 2016 when I told you, I don't know, man, I think the social media is for young people. We were in a diner at the time, like a little local
Yeah.
diner in small town Kentucky. He said, you looked at me and you said, Mark, look around. Look how many gray haired people are on their phones right now. And he was like, it blew my mind. And like, that was in 2016. That's 10 years ago, right? What I didn't realize was the people that have built a big brand, not by followers. I'm talking about content, how much content is out there on you.
Sure.
Andrew, I think that it's going to be astronomically advantageous to them as AI agents come on the scene. The ability, like, there will come a point in time where Facebook, Instagram, these social platforms are going to be like, fine, come on in, right? They're all like walled up right now. Maybe you've
Yeah.
got Grok with X and Elon, so we can go crawl your stuff over there. But like having these like searchable public stuff that these agents can be trained on
For
gives
sure.
you the ability to do things like what you're talking about, this one-to-one at scale that is like customized. Man, that's a cool system. Kudos to you for building that. And
Well,
you got a VA that's like now the human in the loop, right?
yeah, so here's what I would say is I didn't build these things personally, but I watched a video or I read an article or a newsletter and I said, maybe we could do this or we could do this. And like I think a lot of times my role is what a lot of people want to be. I'm kind of like the idea guy,
Yep.
right? Like I'm like, hey, could we do this?
I
Could we
feel
do
you.
that? And like credit to my team. They'll tell me if they think it's a bad idea. And probably 80% of them, they're like, I don't think that's a fit. That's a fit. And so I'm putting a lot of shots on goal, right? But I'm fully comfortable with them saying that's fine, that's stupid. Like we should work on this other more important thing. And
Yeah.
so, like we have all of these people that we've hired for various things that are just like young, educated, talented people. They just happen to be in either Latin America or like Northern Africa. And, like we probably have 3 or 4 people that we would say are pretty proficient in building AI workflows and agents at this point.
Yeah,
And it's
man.
pretty incredible. And about 4 or 5, we've only been at this for like 4 or 5 months. Like, I was kind of like, I need to do this. And I'm one of the people that when I have conviction in something, we go all in. And so one of the things we talked about is like, look, guys, like I identified probably 15 people in the organization. And I said, you guys need to be using this every single day. And if you're not, like, I'm not gonna like come put my foot in your ass. But eventually, when you're like the only one not doing it, and it's like we're doing the same thing with social media. I said, guys, like I've been posting on social media for 2 or 3 years, and it's fine. I try to always add value, But I'm like, guys, you have so much value to add. And it's like just an example of how we're using AI is that we use Fathom, which is our note taker. You've got it as well.
Got it right
And
here in the
and
podcast.
we have it set up to where every single Fathom call, whether it's a sales call, and this is for Next Call Club, there's a little bit more compliance on
Yep.
the insurance side, but there's a way to do it compliantly. It's just a lot more convoluted. But on the Next Call Club side, every sales call, every check-in call, every consulting call, they're going into this repository. It's like this super secure server. I don't know the acronym, but like we've had it, our attorney set it up. And basically, what it's doing is it's feeding into our model and saying, look, here's all of these social posts that you can put out because there's value up in the noggin that maybe you can't draw from when you're looking for inspiration of a post, but here they are. And
Yeah.
it's crazy. Like now that I've got my team putting value out there, I'm like, guys, the number one rule is add value. We're not here to sell on social media. We're here to add value, educate, entertain, inspire. You can have a sales post every once in a while, but if all you do is sell, 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 you're just going to tune you out. So it's like I'm trying to get my whole team posting on social media, not just on Next Call Club, but on Peachy Insurance as well. Because as we go back to this idea of the marketing funnel, that's just all top of mind awareness. You just
Literally.
remind people that you exist. And like our sales trainer, Ryan, he's on a wait list right now. And he was running a couple clients at a time. And I said, dude, start posting on social media. And he filled up like that because all of these people who he had talked to in the past were like, I need to get with you. I need to get with you. I need to get with
Yeah.
you. Add value, show up, and be like Dion, be easy to find. Easy to find.
I love it, man. I love it. Dude, we've got to wrap this up. I got to hop on my
Yeah,
next one, but
you're good.
we definitely got to do this again. Tons
Sure.
of information we can unpack. I'd love to do a longer one with you where we just kind of deep dive. We didn't get to nerd out on AI as much as I would have liked to, but
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming through the Sales Factory, man. How can people find you if they want to look you up online?
Go to nextcallclub.com. Super simple, or Google Next Call Club is how you find the company. You can also just search my name on Facebook or LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on both. And then I have a newsletter. It's pinned at the top of my
Yeah.
profile. It's called All Aboard. I put it out mostly every week. It's been a little bit slow right now because I'm traveling. I miss a few weeks, but my goal every week is simple. I want to give you like 1 or 2 quick tips that you can implement in your agency right away or change the way you think. Completely free, free forever. And that's how you find me.
I love it, man. Andrew, thank you for coming to the Sales
Thank
Factory,
you.
man. It's been a blast.
Thanks,
Guys,
man.
if you haven't liked, comment, shared, left a review on the podcast, please do. It helps me get the show in front of more entrepreneurs so that I can live out my purpose, which is weaponizing the next generation of business leaders and their teams. Until next time, I'm Coach Carroll. This is the Sales Factory. Hustle. It's worth it.
See you guys.